side of the hour, we're going to have Mark Baton talk about all things cycling and pedestrian infrastructure here, bike culture, what it's like to ride your bike all the time. But first, we've got a lady, and she was on the last show. Her name is Eileen. Her husband, Harvey, God bless them. They love each other. They've been traveling all over the place. And what they normally do is, I got talking to them because they would travel to all places where LSU would play a baseball game or a football game or something like that. And she was going to talk to me about the place. Like if they went to Knoxville or if they went to Atlanta or something, she'd talk to me about the town, not the game. Because Harvey's into the sports and she's into, the nightlife and all this kind of stuff, even though she's been around long enough to experience a lot of nightlife. So she had a joke last time. This time she sent me a song. So why don't you go ahead and play the song? This is called The Oldest Drunk in Heaven.
We'd like to remind you folks calling in to, keep your questions within the boundaries of good taste.
Usually, as you can tell, her like a fine whiskey, and it's a very smoky flavor. Now, this is something else. Before we get into chit chat with, let's do this first. When we were at Capital City Grocery earlier today, they had us do Rally Cap Mango being mango, but the other beer that they sent was Terrapin Beer Company Moo-Hoo. It's a chocolate milk stout. And so get ready, go ahead and crack these open. There we go. And we're going to try these out. Cheers. Yeah, cheers. The vastly different taste
chocolatey
than the last beer, but it's like drinking a chocolate bar. We're going to get back into something a little bit more serious. Still enjoyable. I ride my bike all over town, and I know this guy to my left rides his bike everywhere. And I know this because when my son and I were riding our bike earlier today, the train was parked on the levee.
That train.
Ladies and gentlemen.
The words I cannot use for that train.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Baton is joining us here. Mark, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Now, tell me, I know you ride.
Yes.
You ride all over the place. I see you on the bike. You and I, you normally see each other when we're riding, wave to one another.
Yep.
You're in Bike BR?
Yep.
Tell me what organizations that you're in and what you do in those organizations.
Oh, well, Bike BR, I started it back 16 years ago. It was called Baton Rouge Advocates for Safe Streets, which no one could ever remember. So
yeah, that's not a good, unless it came out to be a good acronym at some point.
Well, BRASS.
So
But it turns out there are like 4 other.
Used to be a hockey team out of New Orleans called the BRASS. Yeah,
indeed. So then Bike BR, and I've been on the board forever. And I'm also on the City Parish Complete Streets Citizen Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And on the state's Citizens Complete Streets Advisory Committee, although it's not called that. And I do other stuff.
Well, I know you do plenty of stuff because you're always involved, and I always communicate with you or chit chat with you. When I was on the council, we would talk about voting for infrastructure, or voting for this, that, and the other. I would communicate with you directly, and you'd disperse whatever information or get me information that I needed to be more well informed and pass it on to my council cohorts.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you, actually, I was taking a warm showers guest. It's not what it sounds like.
Warm showers guest for him is when somebody is coming from around the country, stops here, stays with Mark so they can ride their bike here.
Yeah, and
just to get that out of the way, real quick.
And we crossed on Spanish Town Road. You were coming back from.
That was a Habitat for Humanity build.
Right.
Yep.
So, there you go.
So, I know why I ride a bike, but people out there that might be listening to this in their car that don't necessarily ride a bike unless they're just going to go for a bike ride, or when you have a small child, you've got a bike seat for a small kid or something like that, and it's a small time in your life, a small window where you ride a bike a little bit, or you're a little kid, you ride a bike a lot because you don't have a car. But to those people who don't use cycling as transportation that much,
Right.
why ride a bike?
Well, let's see. Back in 1991, I discovered I couldn't afford a car, so I got rid of it. So it's been 30 years this year since I've had a car. It wasn't like I went from driving all the time to not driving all the time without some kind of trauma, because you can't make a change like that without it. But once I became accustomed to it and began to realize all the benefits from it, and the first one being that it makes me happy, then, why stop? And all the other benefits that come with it are there regardless. You're going to save money. You're going to have better physical health. You're going to have better mental health. You're going to be happier. You're going to save a bunch of money. And so, keep doing it.
Well, what I notice is, there's a big difference between flying coast to coast and driving coast to coast as far as seeing the country.
Absolutely.
Within a city, there's a big difference between driving across a city, riding a bicycle across a city, and walking across a city. You get to see a whole lot more of where you live and understanding what, from my perspective as a former council, when I was on the council, what needed to be fixed when I would normally go by it at 60 miles an hour. Right. Now I'm going, holy cow, I'm going to fall in this hole. Right. On a bicycle, you see a whole lot more that needs to be fixed.
Well, you certainly see all the tires that everybody's dumping on this.
Well, that's very true. That's very true.
Well, and it's not just, let's see. You do see a lot of stuff, whether good or bad or different. It's there, but you see it, and you're part of it, and you're part of the city, and you become part of all the life around you. I mean, we have more amazing wildlife here than most people recognize. We've done bird rides where we have an ornithologist from LSU lead us, and then we're not leaving at the crack of dawn, so it's not ideal timing. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning, but 9:30 or 10 by the time we get going, and we're done by 1 in the afternoon. And for birding, that's like lousy time to do it. We got 53 species and hundreds, if not thousands, of birds in the process. That's who knew? I mean, we have bald eagles down the river. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that, A lot of people don't know we have a river. I mean,
unless you're stuck on the bridge, you definitely know you have a river when you're trying to get to Port Allen. But
I mean, we've got this. From my place downtown, it's like 14 miles one way on the levee. That's completely free of motor traffic most of the time, and 14 miles on a bike is a pretty good haul. Yeah, and it's beautiful. It takes it's amazing how quickly you leave the city and you're in countryside.
That's what I noticed, because I donated my Tahoe to WRKF in 2019, and I committed to riding my bicycle, and look. If y'all got the darn mailer, then you would have known that I Uber from time to time. But besides all that, taking an Uber and riding my bike most places, you get to see so much more of the town. Right. And you get to realize the fact that I can ride from Spanish Town to Drusilla at Jefferson Highway. Yeah. And it's what, 7, 8, 10 miles, about that, but it's not like, if I talk to people who don't ride a bike, you'd think I was riding my bike to New Orleans. Right. To just ride to the other side of town. They really can't believe, like I rode my bike from Spanish Town to Baton Rouge General to get my COVID vaccine, and people were like, "Oh my God, how did you do that?" I was like, because it's like riding a bike, that's the phrase that people use.
Right. Well, I think part of that too is that a lot of people who don't ride a bike, we're all creatures of habit, and so when you're used to driving, we all maintain the same routes that we know. Yeah. And most people drive on one of 5 streets, the Interstate being one of those streets. Sure. And it's full of other drivers, and it's full of traffic, and it's horrible, and they recognize it as being horrible. And so they're like, I could never ride my bike, because they think they have to ride on those streets. But they don't.
No, they don't.
And as an example, all right, so Amsterdam in the Netherlands is a place with a lot of people, and it's not just a place to go as an American and smoke hash and fall into a canal. It's
although it happens.
Although it happens. So there's they have I don't know, 25, 30, maybe 45% of their traffic mode share is on bicycles.
And they've got those specific bikes
They've
that
got
I know.
amazing stuff.
I'll put some links on there about the
Amazing
bikes
stuff,
and
yeah.
all that stuff that they've got.
Great infrastructure and all that stuff. So I work at LSU, and we had a researcher come in from Amsterdam. I got him a bike. We hung out some while. We went to a bike-in movie one night off of Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Stanford's a fairly high traffic road.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Saturday night. It's about 10:30. We're riding back to the house, and he says at one point, "Did we even see a car? Have we even seen a car?" And I'm like, "Well, you know that street back there we crossed, there was some traffic, but otherwise, no, I don't think we have." He says, "You can't do this in Amsterdam. You can't ride your bike with there being no automobile traffic."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm in Baton Rouge, and everybody immediately says you can't ride a bike here.
Because somebody's going to run you over.
Right. And this guy from Amsterdam is saying,
he didn't see
you
a
have
car.
it so nice here because there's no traffic. And that's because we're not on the same roads that a person who drives will be on.
See, what I love, look, I was hit by a car when I was, let's say I was about 9 years old. I lived out in the country, and we had two people on our country road that had blacktop driveways, and boy, that was like riding the yellow brick road to Wizard of Oz. We're gonna go ride our bikes on that because you'd go fast. And as a kid, I made a bad decision and I shot out on the road. And a lady, God bless her, she's taking her kid to Boy Scouts and all this kind of stuff. This old beat up black Buick that left one heck of a skid mark, hit me, twisted the bike up and all this kind of stuff. So I'm always advocating for safe places for people to ride. And when you talk about sharing a road, when you're complete streets especially, sharing a road, I got to say this, when I'm an advocate for whenever you can have people on a bicycle be away from these 2-ton pieces of metal that are hard to stop and even harder to control when you're looking at your phone rather than what's in front of you.
Yeah, no kidding.
I want to make things as safe as possible. So what I'm getting from the conversation you had with the guy that was visiting was that you were riding your bike in a lot of places that were away from traffic, which is the safest way to do things if we can do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very safe investment if we can get more people riding bikes and getting away from not being in a situation where they're going to be hurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
If something happens.
And
I've seen enough of those spray painted white bikes.
to
last
ghost
a
bikes
lifetime.
I don't ever want to put another one up.
So you wanted to talk about, let's be positive here. You wanted to talk about the I-10 widening. I don't imagine that there's going to be a bike lane on I-10. So Mark, what do you want to talk about as far as the I-10 widening?
Well, the idea was that if you need an inducement to ride a bicycle and the usual stuff doesn't work, then imagine how much of hell your life is going to become when they start working on Interstate 10.
Yeah.
They're going to widen it.
Mm-hmm. But they're not going to widen the bridge, which quick, increasing the pressure inside the bottle without widening the exit at the top.
When they're building a choke point, it's like, why are you doing this?
I got you.
So in order to do that, all the elevated portions of the road, they have to close one side of the interstate, remove that elevated part, and replace it.
Yeah.
So that means all of the traffic on the interstate goes to the other side, which means you'll have half as much road as you had for every elevated section. So when you're going across the lakes and they have to take down both of those spans and they close them, they just have put an article in the paper that it's going to be, for that one, 4 to 5 years ideally, that it'll take to do that project, that part of the project. And for about 20% of that time, access under those bridges will be closed as well. So Lakeshore and Dalrymple will be closed. What they didn't mention was that the Lakes project will be going on at the same time. So the lakes will be drained, they'll be working on them, and that's going to affect the surface roads. They just put out an article a couple of weeks ago saying that this interstate widening project has a 23-year timeline. If you or your friends or anybody you know has a child born this year, they will
have graduated LSU and moved to another town.
Yes.
Before this is
done. Your child born this year will be 23 years old.
Well, infrastructure does take some time. Even if you're trying to do it as quick as you can, it's going to take some time. But I understand what you're saying. In the meantime, it's going to be hell on earth for people to be driving around any of those areas. And look, as the guy that was the council person for District 11 and always getting phone calls about, I am sitting in dead stop traffic on Jefferson Highway. Well, because somebody's got a flat tire on the bridge.
Right.
So everybody got off on Essen because it's backed up that far. So what you're saying is maybe you look into buying a bike because it's going to get you where you're going to need to go. And I will tell you this, I get a lot of places a lot quicker than I thought from riding a bike than when I used to take an automobile to go there.
And in the process, you're going to save money. You don't have to give up your car entirely. Many insurance companies have a low mileage.
Yeah, they do.
That if you don't ride,
or if you're leasing a car, a very low mileage. In a lot of ways, I know a lot of people who lease cars, and the lower the mileage, that you can actually negotiate something with the dealer to have a lower mileage.
Right, and even if it's just taking your little 2-mile trips to the grocery store and all this other stuff in the meantime, you can do that.
So if somebody wants to get involved, they've got a bike, but they haven't dusted it off in a while, or they want to get a bike and get out, but they want to have more of a social life involved in it. There's a lot of social rides, or like the downtown. Yeah, I know. I'm beating on the table. The downtown East social ride. Then you've got Capitol Heights has a ride.
Right.
Where tell me and tell everybody at home about all the rides where people can get on Facebook, find out where people meet up, and then join other people who are going to just have even during the day or at night and enjoy camaraderie and riding a bike.
Well, I think there's 4 that come to mind immediately. The Downtown East, I believe, is on Monday evening. During the summer, it starts around 6 at the Electric Depot. They also are doing a thing on a Sunday, which is like having a little brunch and doing a little ride. Wednesdays, the Capitol Heights group meets up around Ingleside Methodist Church on Ingleside and Capitol Heights, and they just ride around. There's the Baker Cruisers that just started up recently up in Baker. Then they ride, I believe, on Saturday or Sunday, and they do some other rides.
Who are the folks that when folks are downtown having a drink at one of the places on 3rd Street, and you see these folks coming down the road lit up like a Christmas tree with all the lights on their wheels and everything? Who is that? Is that just a private group of folks that get together? Is that a social ride that people can get engaged in?
That's a business.
That's a business.
Right. Yeah, I think it's Go Ride, and I wish I knew for sure that's it. He's got a shop on the corner of 3rd and Main.
3rd and Main at the base of the parking garage over there. Yep.
And it's you rent a bike with him. They're lit up. They're LED. They have a person in the front. They have a person in the back. Sometimes they have a truck behind it, just for a little extra protection and for SAG. So SAG being that if you have trouble, you can get into the truck and don't have to worry about it. Sure. It's really popular, and it really does light up the night.
I love seeing it, and it's almost like a little bit of Mardi Gras on a weekend, especially when you go by places like my friends that run Cocha, and they've got that outdoor seating area, and if those folks ride by, everybody stops their conversation, and they start yelling to, in a positive way, or talking to the folks that are riding by them, and they're all waving like hi, hello, and it's an icebreaker between the folks on the bike and the people that's sitting outside enjoying the outside.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a great thing. I'm glad to see that he's still getting business and he's doing a good draw on that. There's lots of people who are going out there doing it. It's a mix of people. and they're doing a lot of really good stuff. So the other thing is if somebody is in a part of town that there isn't a ride, or it's inconvenient to go to where those rides we mentioned are, start one of your own.
Exactly.
I mean, all of this stuff, all of these rides,
Started
that
somewhere.
business started with somebody going, I want to go for a ride, and so they did.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
So, you know, part of the, well, this is not the town to talk about anarchy necessarily. You know,
My word.
you know, if you're going to ride a bicycle, you don't have to have somebody do it for you. And if you want to do something on a bicycle, then go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be told to do it. If you want to do it, do it.
Get started.
It's, you know,
yeah.
it's, we
Get it started.
we had a golden age of bicycling for a while there. It was just amazing. And,
Well, Mark, I got to read out the band schedule. So,
right.
thank you. Where can people go on and learn more about on Facebook or something? Where can they learn more about?
yes, you
bike
can
riding?
go to bikebr.org, and one of the things we have as a tool is a map of recommended routes that cover the parish. You can go on Facebook to find Bike Baton Rouge, and those would be the two places you can go immediately. There's also Front Yard Bikes, which does a lot of stuff for biking in the community. And yeah, so.
All right. Well, thanks to Mark Martin for joining us. Thank you for Seabass for coming on the first half of the show. Remember, everybody, Save Teddy's Juke Joint on Old Scenic Highway in Zachary. You can go on. They've got a GoFundMe site. Look it up. And I don't have time to read the whole schedule, so go on Baton Rouge Live Music on Facebook, and they've got an entire schedule that's on there that's going to tell you where, who, and what genre of music they've got. And look, this Teddy's Juke Joint deal is 3 days of great music to help a great cause. And this has been Take It to the Mat. I really appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Matt always appreciates when you tune in. Make sure you listen next Friday at 6 p.m. or any time of the day or night on YouTube or Facebook with Take It to the Mat.